Why are you trying to do everything yourself? You know God's here, is waiting to take this load off for you. Why do you keep thinking you can do it yourself?
Mariette Aida is a sound healer, a singer, a spiritual shaman.
Maybe imagining roots growing from the bottom of your feet.
She's dedicated to living life to the absolute fullest. She's gone through the most difficult challenges in life.
I chose partners that were sexual predators. I was with men that did not appreciate me because I was obliterated. I'd been roofied a couple of times. I was raped. I didn't care about my life. I had suicidal thoughts. I was a mess. Really big fucking mess.
And come out the other side, a healer, a lover, a mother.
I feel so much love for my past self because holy shit, she was so fucking lost and she thought she knew it all.
Someone that has inspired so many people and continues to heal the world.
I know that I was never alone because God was strategically placing my daughter there, waiting for the perfect moment. Everyone has that opportunity of a miracle. No matter what hole you're in, God is always trying to find a way to put an opportunity in there for you to make that choice and do things differently. Welcome to the Evan Fulfilled Being podcast with guest Mariette Aida, sound healer, energy healer, who is super excited to be here. Very excited.
Let's go. I love that you introduced us to the. I love it. You always.
It was supposed to be a tester.
I kind of like that better, you know.
Okay.
Just the getting flowing with it, right? Like you're always so. You're ready to go.
Just ready.
Always.
Always.
And you're not afraid to step in and take charge. Like you see something, you know it, and you go after it. And that's like a huge part of what I respect about you is you're not afraid. Or if you are afraid ever, like you don't let that stop you because you're so powerful, you're majestic. You know that there's like we're living this life and like we might as well take advantage of it.
Gotta live it to its fullest right now. I was very scared before. It took a lot of building up to where I am today. So thank you for that compliment. It's a true testament of my journey. And also I'm a Sagittarius, so that just just naturally fire, just like right there in your face.
I was actually talking to Michelle from Encompass Life yesterday. Just this idea of our greatest weakness is our greatest strength. And on that concept with you, it's interesting to hear you say, hey, I used to be fearful in those respects, but it seems like because of that, you've been able to really improve a lot in that regard, and now it's become your superpower. Would you say that?
For sure. I remember being really timid, but more timid not because I didn't have anything to say, but because there was this people pleaser quality that I had before, or this idea that, oh, you can't say that, or you're being too much. That was, I think, if I were to summarize it, that would be the phrase, oh, you're being too much. Because I've always been very big and bold and as an artist, even as a kid, like doing puppet shows and this and that. I loved being seen, you know, and a lot of people growing up poo-pooed on that. You know, they kind of tried to make me a little smaller, or at least what I perceived them trying to make me smaller. But they were just speaking their truth, which is don't make any ripples, don't be loud, you're being too much, you're asking for too much. And once I started to really do the work with myself, that's one of the phrases that came up. You're being too much. You're being too demanding. And it's like, by whose standards? You know, like by society's standards? Well, y'all are kind of unhappy sometimes. So I'd rather not go by that standard and just live my own life and come up with my own moral compass when it comes to that. You know, am I being too much? What am I asking for? If I'm asking for something fundamental, which is just me and it just involves me, who cares? Are we allowed to curse on this thing? Because
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, for sure.
who the fuck cares?
Yeah.
Like who cares? Like our life up until now is too short to be living like walking on eggshells,
Mm.
and also like doing psychedelics and going into that plant medicine realm. Like caution is thrown to the wind, if you really allow it. So you learn to just have this level of freedom that when you get back to this sober conscious space, it's like, oh man, I don't want to go back to this tiny little like shell that I was in. I'd rather stay open.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like when we're listening to everyone around us and not listening to our internal guidance, that's where we can get really lost. And if we have these conversations, like you said, people are saying you're too much, you're too much, you're too much. If you listen to that, you're not listening to your inner guidance, and you're not allowing that to really blossom into this world. And again, like what I respect so much about you is you having that internal guidance and letting that blossom to the world not only really impacts you, but it impacts all the people around you in such a positive way. Just for me personally, like our experiences that we've had together, you've been my guide, my shaman, on multiple experiences where you've taken me, we've done psilocybin ceremony, which was absolutely incredible, opened my eyes, or just sitting and talking and you using your internal guidance to help me move in the right direction, sound healings. So you not listening to the external world and you listening to the internal guidance, I can personally say like how much that's profoundly impacted my life. And I know other people as well in our community that you have such profoundly impacted. So thank you for that.
Thank you for those words. You're so sweet.
I want to dive in because I think there's a lot of people out there that are maybe sitting in a situation where you maybe were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, where maybe you weren't listening to that inner guidance. So can you talk about what that was like when you weren't listening to your inner guidance, what that created in your life, the challenges that you faced, both like physically, mentally, emotionally,
Oh yeah.
and then how you, what was the trigger that turned that around?
Yeah. So it's beautiful that you mentioned the external and the internal, because very much growing up as a child, I learned to listen to my mom, listen to my dad, listen to my teachers, listen to my friends, listen to everyone else. But very rarely did my parents say, hey, feel into what is best for you. Pray and ask what is best for you. It was always an external source. Even religiously, it was like pray to God. God will give you the answer. Outside of me. And I grew up feeling really scared because I felt like I had no grounding. I didn't know what was happening. I had, people were unreliable in my life. So there was a lot of chaos on the outside. And that led to me having a lot of control issues. Like I had a lot of control issues where, things had to be a certain way, or I had to know things in advance. That's what felt safe for me. At the end of the day, my body just needed something to feel safe. And all the chaos on the outside didn't feel safe. So I had to create my own safety, which was that control piece. And that control piece, as you may know, doesn't allow sometimes for miracles to come in, doesn't allow for spontaneity and alignment and synchronicities to come in because I think I know it all. But I had to. It was a survival thing. And as I started to go internal, because I realized once I had my daughter, there was a human that was depending on me. It wasn't just me anymore. It was this human depending on me. And I chose for her to have a way better experience growing up than I did. So I went into prayer and just asked, how can I become the best version of myself? How can I be the best mom, the best influence, the best inspiration for my daughter? So it wasn't even about me of like, oh, I choose to feel happy and whatnot. At first, it was all about my daughter because for me, I had been used to being a certain way. But for my daughter, who's new and pure and beautiful, and people that have parents, I mean, people that have kids, I think they will deeply resonate with that this human becomes even more important than you sometimes. And she was the reason why I started to go in depth because at that point, I did not have a level of self love for myself. And I can say that looking back now because I judged myself. I didn't trust myself. Um, any feelings that I had, I would feel frustrated about it. I'd be like, ugh, feeling sad. I don't want to cry. Fuck, I hate crying. Like I used to like aversion to crying, like nobody's business. Like if you ask my mom, she would tell you. And now I'll cry everywhere because I love it. It's emotion. It's a part of me. It's part of this human experience. So she was the catalyst for that. And once I started praying, that's when I started getting the answers. And it was a day by day thing. It wasn't this like major aha moment. It was like one day I felt triggered and I was like, man, why am I feeling triggered? And I would sit with it and I would pray and I would cry because a lot of times I had to cry because, like I said, I didn't cry. So I had all this pent up feelings and emotions. So little by little, I just started allowing myself to feel and make it okay to feel. And then obviously taking care of myself physically, um, searching and seeking and praying. And just by me searching and seeking and asking, I started to get the answers little by little. And it brought me to this point where I realized that the internal game is the most important game. Fuck everything else. Really, like anything with family, friends, it does not matter because they have their internal game and that's not yours. It's not your problem. It's not your responsibility. As much as you love them, your internal game is the most important thing. And I had been putting all my intention on the external, on other people. And I was, like I was the biggest giver. Like I would give to the point where I didn't have money myself. And I thought I was being a great person, but I was being shitty to myself. So once I saw that the internal game was the most important game, I'm like, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? Okay, how much do I love myself? I like myself. But as I started to get really deep with it, I didn't really love myself. I was constantly putting myself down. Whenever I would fuck up, I'd be like, ugh, fuck, Mariette, you're so dumb. You're so stupid. How could you do that? So my self-talk was like one of the first things that I had to switch around. It's like, oh, damn, I've been talking. Like, would I talk this way to the person that I love? No, never. So just getting real with like where I'm at and how I'm talking to myself. And then realizing that it's like, okay, let me be a little nicer to myself. Let me hug myself. I'll randomly, like, I remember just like being there and just being like, I love you, Mariette. It's okay. It's okay that you did this, and give myself little kisses on the shoulder. Like it looks fucking crazy if you see someone doing that, but who the fuck cares? Like this is for you.
Yeah. That idea of control that you had mentioned, like needing to control everything in your life. I've felt similar ways in terms of that. And even till this day, like I continue to feel that at times and struggle with it. Like this past couple weeks in terms of, building this podcast, like I've become at times obsessed with it and just thinking about how, the YouTube formula and the editing and all this stuff. And I find myself over engineering, over controlling. And I mean, yeah, earlier this week, like I hit a low point. I was just like, man, this is not fun. This is not cool. And I was having such a good time for months and months and months creating this. And that idea of just trying to control the outcome, that idea of trying to appease our childhood selves by trying to gain that sense of security that you were trying to gain because you had all this external turmoil that you were trying to control, right? For me, it was with my parents always trying to prove that I was good enough. So for me, it's like there's this complex of trying to succeed externally, exactly. Succeed externally. But what I've come to realize this as well as you have is like the more I lean into trying to control the external world, the less happy I am. And like, look, we all are on this process together. We're all growing together. And so for me, it was a cool awakening again this week of like, wow, I've been trying to control the external world too much. Awesome. Like, and that awareness to let go and just accept and to enjoy the process. Because I feel like when we really let go of the external outcome and we focus on the internal, like you had mentioned, man, life becomes fun and easy. And like, all right, like that person doesn't call you back, or the video doesn't perform how you want, or the client, doesn't call you back, whatever it is. If we're so focused on things going a particular way and it manifesting this one way, we are eliminating the thousands of possibilities that where it could go and where it could be amazing. And that again comes back to the external outcome, but at the same time, we're just missing life. We're just so focused on that. So for you, does that still happen to you? Do you still feel like
before we go over to me.
Yeah. Okay. I like this.
Before we go over to me, I love that. And at the same time, what I do choose to acknowledge you, Evan, since not only you acknowledged me, but what I really enjoy about you is that you have your eyes open, your heart open, and you're ready for your next level. And even if there may be hiccups and things that pull you back, you always find your way back to center because you have tools that you've learned. You have prayer, you have love in your heart, you have this beautiful intention to just love everyone. Like I remember seeing that little that video that your dad had that you just as a kid, you're just like, I just want to love everyone. I just want everyone to be happy. Like, and in essence, that's you. You just want to love everyone. You just want love and happiness and like just to feel good. And that's you. So anything and hiccups that come in, you always bring yourself back to that center. And I love the awareness that you have when you get into those spaces too, because no matter where you've been able to be like, you know what? I was being a little too external. How can I get more internal? And you ask these questions, and that's the first step, at least the first step. And you hit the nail on the head when you talked about this people pleasing thing of like, I, growing up just wanted to prove that I was worthy to my parents, that I was good enough to my parents. What about you? What was enough for you? What did you have to do to feel proud enough for you? Not their standards or thinking what their standards might be. Fuck everyone else in the most beautiful way. Like when it comes to really building your self-love and really getting in tune with you and God and source and your divine higher self and like who you are and why you're here, it's going to look different from everything else. It may not make sense some of the times. And I feel that's where some people get a little tripped up because they're like, well, things should go this way. And it's very linear. But you don't know what God's plan is. You don't know that this rejection, this failure is actually a redirection. And God is just saying, hey, yo, don't focus on that. I need you over here. And the only way God can get you there is to not give you what you ask for. So if we take personally the things that we've been asking for, we've been working hard on and putting our energy and trying to control the outcome, and then that outcome doesn't come, instead of being hard on ourselves, instead of thinking, man, what did I do wrong? See, there's that self-beat up. Mm-hmm. It's about going back to that trust of everything's okay. It's okay. Everything is perfect. And that's why intention is so important. So making sure you set your intention and get set on your why. I know you know what that means. That is the most important thing, because then you're setting your trajectory, you're placing your order, and you're just letting it flow the way it needs to flow. And in the beginning, when I did that, when I started doing that, things were really choppy because it was a push and pull where I felt like I had to control, or I felt like when I was on a certain trajectory, it's like, okay, now I can control because now I can see the path. Here, let me add my steam and my energy and all that. But then, wah.
Yeah.
I was being pushed, gently nudged into a deeper layer of trust, a deeper layer of inquiry and connecting to God. And my level of connecting to God has, I think, from that point where I made the choice to go into my shadow work and really become my best self to where I am now, God is everything to me. And it's not about religion. It's not about, what's right, what's wrong, anything like that. God to me is my compass. God to me is the God on the inside of me and the God all around me with these miracles of life that is all around. Like, life is a miracle. Like, these trees are beautiful and they're living beings. The ground that we walk on, the house that we live in, the friends that we have, like, everything is God. And everything is a miracle and it's beautiful. And this divine orchestration of life, this divine orchestration of ourself, is made to prosper. It's made to grow. That is the trajectory. And to think that life is here to mess us up is just one of those belief systems where, where's your faith? Where's your faith that everything is meant for you? Everything is meant for you. And really having that as your belief system, because that's what I had to really get clear on. Everything that happened to me, it happens for me.
So a couple questions. How do we do that? Because I'm sure, like me, myself, I've been there when you're in the dumps and you can't see the way out and you're like, what is going on? And you're like, well, I beat myself up.
What are you feeling when you're in those dumps? Give me one example.
What am I feeling?
Yeah.
Like the emotion?
Mm-hmm.
Man. Like,
name an example, something maybe recent, so we can play with that.
So in terms of building the team, right? I've building the team here. I've interviewed different editors, hired different editors, had to balance my budget in terms of like allocating those resources, and just it felt like a very stressful decision and choice on how to allocate, because again, I'm trying to control right the outcome, trying to,
and also you have an outline of what your budget is. That's reasonable.
Yeah. But basically at times it just gets like, to me, I'm overthinking these things, and then instead of trusting the process, trusting God, trusting whatever comes, right? It happens for a reason. I'm trying to like overthink, overanalyze, and like make the right choice.
So in that moment that you're feeling this, and I apologize for interrupting, but I choose to get clear.
Yeah.
So when that happens, or when that did happen and you were feeling that, let's say this past week, 2 weeks ago, how long ago was it?
Yeah, like past week or two.
Past week. Mm-hmm. What did you do in that moment?
What did I do in that moment? I mean, in the moment, I started to go down that rabbit hole. Of trying to control, trying to figure out the right thing to do externally. But then it got me to a point quickly, because I've gone through these patterns before where I'm like, man, this isn't good. This isn't sustainable, because then it doesn't matter what that is. That, like, let's say I figure out that thing, there's going to be the next thing that comes up, whether it's
So question.
Yes.
At what point when you were feeling all that, did you stop and pray?
So yesterday, I had a great call with Michelle. So, like, to me, like, I've learned and I've been able to understand that really is the way, is pray, is trust. And on the call with Michelle, who, for the audience who doesn't know, is my coach from Encompass Life. She'll be coming on the podcast.
So cool.
As well. But I learned to trust, to pray.
So at what point when you were feeling that last week,
yes,
did you pray about that moment?
I don't think I did last week. So that's where, that's why I got to a low point.
So there was a Reiki master that did a session on me, and I was very much in my controlling space. And after my session, he whispered into my ear, he's like, why are you trying to do everything yourself? You know, God's here waiting for you to ask him. He's waiting to take this load off for you. Why do you keep thinking you can do it yourself? So I say that to you. When you're going down that spiral of allocating and this isn't working and this and that, that's you trying to do it yourself. All of it. Every single bit. And even continuing to go down the rabbit hole and then trying to self-regulate, you know, whether it's breath work or meditation, that's still you thinking that you can do it yourself. These tools are here, yes, to self-regulate. And at the same time, there are moments that are beyond me that I recognize I don't got it. I don't got it. So I pray to God who does. And it's as simple as prayer. So I invite you, if you feel any low point, literally, if you gotta post it on your shirt or something, or like a little tag here, pray. Stop and pray. Instead of stop, drop, and roll, stop and pray. You start to feel anything chaotic of losing control or trying to figure something out, just stop. Take a deep, cleansing breath and say, God, I need your help. I require your help. I don't got this. And I'm done pretending like I do. I'm done trying to control the outcome. Help me get beside myself and just open myself up to you so that I can hear you, so I can hear your guidance and your whispers, because that's how it starts. When you haven't had that connection with God, God comes in, but it's at a whisper. So everything else sounds louder. And you got to be really, really quiet to hear that whisper. But when you allow yourself to get beyond yourself and recognize that you don't got it, that's a level of surrender. That's a level of trust. Do you feel that openness? And if you haven't been doing that, play with it. Do that. Because I can list off tools and I can list off mantras and affirmations and things, and it'll help you. But that is the controlling aspect of you doing. And if that's what you've been doing, maybe you got to do something different. And prayer, by far, has been the most deeply satiating thing that I've incorporated into my practice. There are days I don't meditate at all. I pray all day long, tiny prayers, big prayers. And in these prayers, when I'm talking to God, there's an aspect of me that's talking to myself too. recognizing, hey, I don't got it. God, please help me. And that's me having the biggest self-love for myself, is taking me off the chopping block and being like, yo, Mariette, you don't have to have it figured out. And just bringing someone else in, like this beautiful source energy who created me, who created the world, who knows everything that's going to happen. And I start a conversation with God. God, please take this from me. Help guide me and move me exactly where I'm meant to be for my highest and greatest good. I trust you, God. I trust you more and more every day. The more I trust you, the more I trust myself every day. And see what happens with that. Miracles are real. It's just you got to actually use your voice and ask. And that was the controlling piece of myself, that I felt that I could do everything. Because I'm really smart, I'm really educated, I'm all these blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, it was so exhausting to try to do everything myself. It was so exhausting. Emotionally exhausting, physically exhausting. Like I was premature aging exhausting. And when I just let go and gave it to God, anything that I'm scared of to this day, because I still feel fear. And I still feel a lack of self-confidence sometimes, or a lack of direction sometimes. All the time, actually. But I'm like, God, I give this to you because it's not mine. I'm here to be guided. I know that you're here for me. I know that you will guide me because this is what I'm asking for. Please show me the next steps. Is this for my highest and greatest good? If there's a specific question, what should I be focusing on? Dear God, please speak to me. Allow me to hear your voice. And then all of a sudden you feel this voice inside. And it's your internal compass turning on. It's your intuition getting on track, in flow. Your God speaks through your intuition. Where do you think your intuition comes from?
Could you lead us on a prayer that you and I can do, as well as the audience? We can do it together for anyone that's struggling, over controlling, overthinking, or just people that want to close their eyes, do a prayer, and we can open our eyes and just grow together.
Let's do it. Beautiful. I feel like we're in a really soft, tender, delicious space right now. So that feels good. So as a tool, as a guiding post, as a daily practice, and I choose to know if daily practice is even the word, because I think of yoga and meditation and breath work. This is beyond that. If you haven't been praying up until now, do it and see what happens. See where your levels of stress are. Let's see what changes in your life. Because everything is through God. And I feel not enough people talk about it for whatever reason. But when you stop caring what other people think and you become a godly person, your life starts to change. And then people start to wonder what you're doing different. So incorporating simple prayers, closing your eyes, taking a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth, deep and slow. Added points if you're able to ground and just envision roots coming out of the bottom of your feet if you're standing, or roots coming out from your bottom as you're sitting. And just breathing, allowing yourself to get to a still space. Because a lot of times we feel really chaotic before we start to pray, and just to really set up this openness and to really get into our heart space so that we can really speak from our heart what we really desire, what we're really feeling. Taking a couple moments to breathe and ground is just so beautiful. So once you're settled, just maybe acknowledge what you're feeling. I'm feeling stressed out. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling like I'm fucking up, like I just don't know what to do. And just say, God, are you there? I know I haven't spoken to you very often, but I choose to do differently. I choose to be your son, to be your daughter, to be your child. Teach me. Dear God, I pray these feelings that I'm having that are causing me stress, I give it to you. And just imagine having a bowl in front of you. You know, you can even cup your hands together and just put all those feelings of fear and uncertainty and just put it in your hand. And just imagine extending your hand out and God is right in front of you and placing it at their feet. Just placing it at God's feet and saying, God, this isn't mine. I give it to you because I know that you love me and I know that you choose the best for me. And dear God, I pray, I ask to hear your voice. I ask to have a connection with you. I ask to have a relationship with you because up until now, I have not really had a relationship with you. And my life is not where I choose for it to be. And I recognize to expect different results, I have to do things differently. And I love you. And I'm so thankful that you're in my life. And I'm so thankful that you love me enough to just be on the sidelines and wait for me to come to you because I know you've been waiting. I give this all to you, God, and I ask for peace. I ask for prosperity. I ask for guidance. I ask to feel safe and secure in my body, to feel safe and secure in my choices. Up until now, I've doubted myself. Up until now, I've felt a lot of confusion in my life. And I give that all up to you because you know everything. You know what is meant for me. You know exactly where I'm meant to go. And I ask you and give you full permission to take my life and move it wherever it is that you choose. Because I know that wherever that is, it's exactly what I've always desired and so much more. I am ready to do things your way. I am ready to do things your way and take me out of my way. Put me and my old ways of control and fear and confusion, push it aside and allow you to come through. Thank you, God. I ask to hear your voice clearly. I ask to hear you more and more every day. I ask to trust you more and more every day that I may walk the path that you have chosen for me. To only see you, God. Because in you I have safety. In you I can make no wrong choices. If I trust what you have given me, which is what I choose to do, I know that I will be happy all the days of my life. Because I choose to be happy. I love you. Thank 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 you. Amen. And just like that, you open it up. And now you have a new relationship. You have an inner knowing or connection to an inner knowing that you maybe didn't have before fully. And you just keep praying and you keep giving it up to God. And soon these feelings, maybe they'll be replaced with different feelings because it's all filtering out. You know what I'm saying? All these things are filtering out of your life. And as each day passes, something new might come up, but it's all there to filter out so that you can redirect and choose something different and see a new path. Because you still have choice in all this every single day.
Where did you learn to have trust in God? Like where did it just hit you one day, or where did that stem from?
When I was a kid, I very much loved God. I felt a connection to God. I felt protected and I felt this light. I just felt that there was light in the world. And as I was a teenager and started going through trauma and having just really awful experiences in my early adulthood, I started to feel that light dim to the point where it completely snuffed out. When I was married in my very toxic, very dangerous relationship, I felt it completely snuffed out, and it freaked me out because that was the first time that I did not feel any light in my life. And when I chose to leave that relationship and start to get back in with myself, that's when that light started to come back. And as it started to come back, I started to get really clear that the reason why my life was going downhill was because I had gone farther and farther and farther away from God. And as soon as I recognized that the light, that's what it started off as, because, I had a religious complex before. So I even had trouble saying God. So I would say light. That's what I find a lot of spiritual communities are focusing on, love and light, which is great because God is love and God is light and God is life. It's all the same. But now I feel comfortable saying God. But it was that love and light that I was aiming for because that's what felt good. It just felt good. Those small pockets that I would feel it, I'm like, oh, this is it. And then it would go back to shittiness, but I'm like, oh, I've experienced that love and light, so I know it's there. More of that, more of that. And that's when I started manifesting and things like that, but still doing it very much my way. But as soon as I started praying, my manifestation started coming in even deeper. As soon as I started to get real with my feelings and feeling my feelings and emotions and just giving it, that's when my manifestation started to come in quicker. To the point now where I see who is behind it, and it's God. So it's love and light at its essence. A lot of people can connect to that. At the end of the day, it's source, it's God.
So with that relationship, like what were the, like you said, you hit a low point there, darkness, like what was the feeling, like what were some of the experiences? Because it sounds like you had, from both childhood as well as early adulthood, it sounds like some traumas that like really affected and impacted you as a person. But I also believe that those experiences really, if viewed and changed our perspective to love and light and prayer, like help us become like the servants that we become, like who you are now. I feel like a lot of the audience has gone through very painful trauma and maybe don't see that light. Would you be able to share some of those experiences, those traumas,
Yeah.
those?
There's definitely a trigger alert on this part. So I'm going to be very honest. Our greatest weakness shall be our greatest strength. And at 8 years old, I was sexually abused by my father and had no recollection of it. I did not remember my childhood. From my early 20s, that's something that I just knew. I didn't remember my childhood. Didn't know why. My track records with relationships was awful. I chose partners that did not appreciate me. I chose partners that were sexual predators without me even realizing it. Because as a foundation, as a child, my father was a sexual predator. So that's what was familiar for me. And they always say that you date men that are like your father. I just didn't know he was a sexual predator. And when I started to go into my deep dive after leaving my toxic relationship, and my daughter was about 3 years old at that point, I felt called to sit with ayahuasca. Mind you, I did not want to. It was something that I thought of and looked into, and I'm like, purging? Ew, ugh, how uncomfortable. I was not about the uncomfortability. And in that ayahuasca ceremony, I was shown that I was sexually abused and who did it. And it made complete sense. It was like, wow, At 8 years old, this sexual trauma happened, and that became a part of my foundation. So that all these experiences that I had as a kid, teenager, early adult were based off of that foundation. I had no idea who I was at that point. It was huge. And that was one of the reasons why I entered into that toxic marriage that I was in. My daughter's father, he was a sexual predator. Mind you, he never did anything like that to our daughter, but he was a sexual predator to women in general. And very emotionally abusive, physically abusive. And there was a level that I thought I deserved it. Because when I had met him, I was at my low point when I met him. I had become a stripper because I stopped caring about anything. I would do cocaine in the bathroom with the girls. I would take shots. I'd been roofied a couple of times. I was raped. It was all these dark spaces because I just didn't give a fuck anymore. I didn't care about my life. I had suicidal thoughts. This was before my daughter. And when I was there at the strip club, I remember this guy coming in, and he was the first guy that I chose that I was like, you know what? I'm going to proposition. At that point, I was a stripper. But all the girls were talking about, having side jobs and, sleeping with men for money. And I was like, you know what? I'll do that. And the first man that I propositioned was my daughter's father. And he very much fell in love with me, what he thought was love. Because at my core, I've always been a really loving, beautiful person. So he and I started a relationship, and we got married after my daughter was born. But we got married, honestly, because he got in trouble with the law, and he was an immigrant, and I was scared he was going to get deported. On the day we got married, we got into one of the biggest fights. It was awful. No one should ever get married when they have a fight that day. There's a misalignment. That should have been ping, 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 ping. But I was so deep in my hole because of all these choices that I had made. Alcohol was one of the most destructive things for me. I would black out. And I drank alcohol, I started drinking alcohol when I was 13, played around with it, smoking cigarettes, being all cool. And then from then, every once in a while, at a house party or something. But in my early 20s, when I was really an adult and free, I went ham. And I was with men that did not appreciate me because I was obliterated. I had no control over myself. And if you are into the spiritual realm or know what alcohol does, alcohol is used by shamans actually to be possessed. So I was opening myself up to a bunch of things. I was diagnosed as bipolar. I had bipolar disorder, and I was on medication from, started at the age of 15 up until the age of 25. I had mood disorders. I was a mess, really big fucking mess. And I kept digging myself into holes because I had no connection to God in any way, shape, or form. I was doing whatever the fuck I wanted. It's like I was completely distracted, completely numb, completely disconnected from myself. And it wasn't until a divine miracle in the form of my daughter to be born, this little angel that came into my life, that even though I didn't give three shits about myself, I had to do better for this girl. I had to. She was my everything, is my everything. So I left my husband for my daughter because I didn't want her to grow up to see that it's okay for men to treat women the way he would treat me. She is and was my reason to get out and to start getting in and bringing God back into the picture. And she wholeheartedly is my miracle. And I do believe that everyone has that opportunity of a miracle. No matter what hole you're in, whatever, there are angels waiting. God is always trying to find a way to put an opportunity in there for you to make that choice and do things differently. We are never left alone, ever. No matter how grim and dark and desperate my situation seemed, I know that I was never alone because God was strategically placing my daughter there, waiting for the perfect moment so that I take that and I make a different choice to the point where I am at now, which is completely different. Completely different. Like I don't even recognize myself. If anything, I feel so much love for my past self because holy shit, she was so fucking lost and she thought she knew it all. I'm just so thankful that I am where I am right now. It's not a magic pill. It's a step-by-step process. But I do believe that prayer gets you there faster. Because as soon as I started incorporating prayer, that's when things started fast tracking. Started coming in quicker. Guides started to come in. Certain retreats started to come in. Certain TED Talks and podcasts and YouTubes and music and food choices. All these things started presenting themselves. And I'm like, oh, what is that? Oh, what is that? Just fed. All I had to do was pick it up.
We started letting go of that control, that thinking like, okay, I need to do this and this and this is just, and then that, as you had mentioned, that whisper of that intuition, you started to be able to hear that a little bit better. And I almost feel like a whisper is also patient too. It's like you don't need to grab it right away. You just, so anytime maybe you feel that emotion grabbing, like I need this, it's not the path, but it's I feel like when we're trusting God, we can hear that whisper, and it just is.
It becomes louder though. When I say whisper, it's because it's been pushed far away. When I chose to actively listen to my intuition and say, I choose to listen to my intuition, I choose to strengthen my intuition more and more every day. That's when that whisper started to get louder and louder and louder because I allowed it to get closer and closer to the point where my intuition speaks now and it's like gut wrenching. You know what I'm saying? Because I allowed it. There's a lot of people, or at least I'll speak for me, that let's say I would leave the house. All of a sudden I would get this like thought, oh, I should bring an umbrella. Controlling mind. Oh, there's not a cloud in the sky. I don't need to bring an umbrella. Hours later, pouring down rain. I was negating my intuition. It's as simple as that. And that's how I started. So I made a decree that anytime that I had a thought of bring an umbrella, bring this, go get that, even if it didn't make sense, I fucking did it. And when I started doing that and it started showing up for me, it was like, oh, okay, more, and more.
So how do we discern between that like first thought and second thought? Because couldn't sometimes our first thought be from the controlling mind? Like, oh, you, like for me, if I do real estate, right? So sometimes it's like, you got to do that real estate deal. Is that first thought always the intuition, or
it's where does that first thought come from? And that's where you can play with inquiry. If there really are two thoughts that you're like, okay, there are these two thoughts, which one is it? Prayer. Prayer will be that person that comes in and be like, yep, is this one. You ask and you say, you know what? There are two choices here. Dear God, which one is it? Which one is for my highest, greatest good? Which one will bring me the greatest ease, the greatest abundance?
And I feel like part of that prayer process is letting it go and being okay with whichever one. It's like, I feel like the only way to truly get the answer is to let it be when we do that prayer without having a preconceived notion. Because if we're thinking, I'm praying that it's this answer, I feel like we're not giving it its
because
real.
you're holding on to,
Yeah.
you're attaching yourself to an outcome.
Yeah.
You're still trying to control. You really do have to get beside yourself. And that's why I specifically put that as a part of the prayer, because sometimes our story or what we think is the best choice in that moment, because apparently we have it all figured out, that's still an attachment. So praying, letting it go, and being okay with whatever comes through, truly, that's the practice. It's not just asking God and then, doing what you want to do anyway. You have to really get out of the way. And what does that mean for you? What do you need to stop doing and start doing more of? And it's a muscle. Because if you've been so used to controlling, it's like you're putting a wrench in the system. It's like, all right, let's reprogram, reboot. So now it's a new way of being. It's a habit that you're breaking.
So with prayer, we got to hear about these experiences, these traumas, the old Mariette, right? That has transformed. What experiences, thoughts, emotions, what have you gained now because of those traumas that you had in your life and because of the prayer? What has this given you?
Oh my God. It's given me life. I have life. I'm here. I had suicidal thoughts many times back in those spaces. Many times. I'm alive because of it. My daughter is happy because of it. I own a home because of it. I do what I love. I live a fulfilled life. There's that word. Truly, my life is because of that. And in that moment, it really, really sucked. And I felt really confused a lot of times because I didn't know if what I was doing was going to work. But by me watching and listening to other people do the same thing and hearing their success stories, it somehow satiated that unknown feeling and made it feel more known. So I could trust more. Because I didn't have the trust. And it really fucking sucked to do all these new things and be different and shed the old ways of being. And I left a lot of friends. I cut off a lot of family members. I had to make a lot of extreme choices, or what other people would think are extreme. But the result has been beyond worth it. I feel happy every single day. Every single day. Does that mean that kerfluffles don't come up? No, it doesn't. I mean, something might come up and I have to take some woosah breaths and just get back to where I'm at. And then I'm happy again. But my constant state is happy. I feel so grateful every day. Having a gratitude practice of just being like, God, thank you for this food. Oh my God, this is so delicious. Thank you to the chickens who gave me these eggs. My life is the way it is right now, and I feel so happy. And it all came from those shitty experiences because I chose different. Shitty experiences are shitty experiences, but if you choose to do something different with it and choose to be different and feel happy every day of your life, you will get what you ask for. Always. Ask and you shall receive. It's a universal law. It truly is that simple. Ask and you shall receive. It's just, I feel that not enough people do it.
I feel like what do you have to lose, right? What do I have to lose? What do we have to lose? Because I've had suicidal thoughts as well. And when you get to a point like that, we're holding on to this control. We're holding on to these things that we think we need. But when you realize that this control element, these things that we think that we need is actually the thing that's leading us to this low point, I feel like we really have nothing to lose. when we get to that point, let's just give it to God, right? Like let's give that trust there. And I feel like for me too, like that's been a big thing for me in terms of my personal growth, my spiritual growth, is just trusting God. And luckily, I think that both of us have had these experiences to show us the way, to show us that there is another way to live. And yeah, I'm just really grateful for these challenges, and it's given us a lot.
It gives you strength. The person that I was experiencing these things back in the day, I was very weak-minded, very weak-willed, very victim. And who I am now, as you described in the beginning of this podcast, courageous. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So to have that, retrospect of remembering who I was and how not courageous I was to who I am now and being described as courageous and strong and inspiring. It's like, wow, I gained my strength through that process, because this process of being your best self and really living a fulfilled life is not for the weak. But what's great is that if you are weak, you can ask to be strong more and more every day, and you will get it. So even if you are weak, doesn't matter. Step into prayer and start asking to be courageous. Ask for the strength. Ask for the wisdom. Ask for the peace. Ask for the guidance. And you start to build yourself along the way. So yes, these tools have brought me a certain something, but just my ability to stay and keep doing it has just up-leveled me to know that I can handle anything. And if you live your life knowing that you can handle anything, it doesn't matter what comes your way, bring it. Just like, bring it.
Those challenges really create that strength, that internal strength, that power, that energy that you bring to life every day. Like, it's so, like, because I didn't know the old Mariette, I know the new one, but those are two in the same. And I feel like maybe there isn't an old and a new. It's the same person, but you've used these life experiences to create that strength in your own life. And it's so inspiring to hear you, because there's so many people out there that are struggling that don't have that self-belief to know. And I feel like at times maybe you didn't have that self-belief in yourself, but it's there. It's there when we trust, when we say, God, please. And there's opportunities there to take it. And it's so inspiring to hear you and your story and who you've become through this process, and what you've shown yourself that you can do, and the experiences that you live on a day-to-day basis. Because I know when you're doing your work now, your work of helping others through these challenges in life, you're living life. Like, you're there, you're empowered, you're using your internal guide that maybe you got from some of those traumas to be able to feel so deeply that your biggest weakness is your greatest strength. And like, I've seen that with you, just like doing ceremonies with you, guiding me. Like, you have this intuitive presence and power.
Comes from God.
It's unbelievable. It's unparalleled. It's amazing, because just for me, sometimes I can't, I haven't been able to hear my internal guidance up until now. But you in the past have just said, hey, Evan, like, why don't you try this? I'm like, what? How did you just, I was like,
comes from God.
Yeah.
God told me.
I'm thinking of like the one experience we did, it was at night before bed. We did it over the phone, where you're giving the prayers. And I don't remember exactly what you said, but I remember you saying something at that time, and it was just the thing I needed to hear. It was like, what? It almost felt like it was almost like it was in your voice, but it was almost in my own voice, because it was like that intuitive, and it was incredible. I remember that was a complete shift for me. And another experience that I had was earlier this year. We were playing with Anais, your daughter, your blessing, a huge part of this growth for you,
Yeah.
and her friends. And I was feeling pretty uninspired at the time. I was so focused on the control and doing business and doing real estate. And I was just putting all my time, energy, and effort and attention into just that. And he said, hey, why don't you do something fun just for you, something that you love, something that you enjoy, like volunteer at a kid's summer camp. Like, well, that's cool. And so I went and I did that this past summer, and that was one of the greatest experiences of my life. It added so much value, joy, abundance, wonder. You've given me that word too, wonder. And it, like, that just changed my life too, to open up my creativity. That has led to this podcast now, with us two sitting here talking about these
That's
things,
so cool.
because it opened up my mind, and it's opening up another way for us to get back to the world, which is us talking about our emotions, us talking about our deep our deep feelings, right? That sometimes our controlling mind may say, don't do that, don't share that, right?
It's too much.
It's too much. It's too much. But when we really let go and we're really honest with ourselves, we're honest with the world, we're just truly authentically ourselves, that gives us the sunlight that's now just shining down on us, and helps other people that are sitting in these positions that may be still trying to control. They don't want to share, they don't want to be truthful with themselves or others. Like, hey, let's give some faith to God and trust. And so it's a process, right? Like, every day we have challenges, but working through those together, you and I together, everyone else out there, all your clients, all the listeners, like, I feel like we're in this as a team. Like,
we're all getting each other stronger and stronger. We're all a part of each other's process. We are like a mycelium. We are connected and we are growing. And the stronger you get, the stronger I get, the stronger she gets, the stronger he gets, they get, like it just, we build each other up. And that's why it's so important. The people that you surround yourself with is so important too. It's environment, and also you being your best self, because it's the internal game. You can't help other people until you help yourself. And when you were talking about people being in a low point and being inspired by things that you do or that I do, I just got this imagery of just stagnant energy. Okay. And like stagnant water. What happens when there's stagnant water? There starts to be some kind of mildew and mold and all these overgrowth of bacteria. Things starts to become unbalanced. What happens when we put sunlight on it? It starts to balance things out. And what did we say light is? God is light. So there's so many people that they feel that they're in this stagnant place. Some people say, oh, they're in a dark space. And I mean, dark is beautiful. That's why I think stagnant is a better word to describe that. People get stagnant in their lives. So what happens when you stay in that stagnancy? You get even more and more stagnant, maybe start to rot a little bit. Things get really out of balance. But when we allow the light to come in, when we allow God to come in, then we start to get balance in our life. And by you shining your light, by me shining my light, we're allowing other people to receive that, because we're showing ourselves. We're being bold enough to show ourselves, to speak out, to, we may not be experts right now, but we're experts at our own truth. And if you resonate with that, man, that's amazing. We're all more similar than we are different. We all experience emotions. We all feel sadness. We all feel happiness. We've all had moments that we've been like, what the fuck do I do? We just have different meat suits. So as long as you keep doing you and you keep sharing as you are with your podcast, as you start stepping in more and more with your creativity, you're shining your light and more comes to you. Yeah. Like this beautiful sun.
Yeah, just being authentically ourselves. And yeah, I like how you said about we may not be experts right now, but I feel like we all on this path, we're on this journey, you can learn from anyone, I really feel like. And so it's cool to just come together and talk and learn these lessons and continue to grow together. And
It's a support system. And it
is a
feels
support
good to
system.
be supported.
Yeah.
It does. I mean, you can do this on your own with God at the same time. It's even more fun with friends. It
Yeah.
really is.
I also like the water analogy with the sun and cleaning it. When you had mentioned water, I thought of a different analogy, which, you know, with the stagnant water, which is, yeah, it gets it gets mildewy,
Out of
bacteria,
balance.
just
Yeah.
and so to me, I feel like when we get in control, right, maybe we're thinking, oh, we need water, we need safety, right, we need this like backup of water, so we take a beautiful flowing river that's just abundant, and then we like dam it, right, and then that can open up all that those issues, right, when we
Stopping the flow.
stopping the flow, because we're trying to control it. We're trying to get the safety that we think that we need, but we're actually poisoning ourselves by trying to be so safe, trying to do the thing that's going to be safe. Whereas when we just let it open and let it go and trust, like that's really where the freshest water is. That's where there's motion. And
well, we're also letting nature do what it's meant to do. We're letting God flow. We're letting God do what is intended. When we try to step in and put that dam, we think we're doing something great because, oh, it helps this and that. But guess what? It may be helping this area, but you don't know what it's affecting over here and these other parts of the land that rely on that water. So there's so many analogies with water. I mean, we are water. So I think it's great.
I was just on this idea of control. I was listening to Mickey Singer this morning. Have you heard of Mickey Singer?
I've heard of Mickey Singer.
He's like always talking so much about this concept, and he's been a huge inspiration of mine. Just letting go of control, right? We have our mind goes, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, and you're trying to go and grab and control. And I mean, Mickey Singer's said this message time and time again, which is the more we try to shift our external world, we're never going to be happy. We're never going to be okay, because there's always something else to shift and something else to shift. And we're constantly in this state of imbalance. And so when we just let go of it and we trust, I think that's where the power is. And that's where it interlays with this idea concept, what is God? To, different people have different interpretations of what God is, but this idea of just trust, love, light, God, whatever
and
we call
giving it to a higher being, to something beyond you. Because at the end of the day, I'm human. I do not claim to know it all. And that concept of letting go and not trying to control the environment will constantly change. The only constant is change, like yeah. It will constantly change. But what will change beautifully is your internal response to it. So by giving it up to God, by stepping into trust, you're recalibrating your response system to your environment. So it's going to keep changing, but you're going to be cool as a cucumber. You can be chilling. You'd be like, okay, all right, what next? Oh, that was interesting. Oh, that was funny. Ooh, that kind of sucked, but okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's okay.
And if the emotion does rile up and that feeling of control or whatever does come up, just being okay with that
Feel it
too.
too, man.
Feel it.
Gotta feel it too, because there's an aspect, like whenever I feel frustrated, um, there'll be that level of control of like, I really wanted this thing, or I really chose for this thing to happen and it didn't happen. And it was my attachment to that expectation that I feel really sad that this didn't happen. So allowing myself to cry in that moment and shed a couple of tears of just being like, I feel really sad because I really wanted this to happen. But by me crying, that's my outlet of just allowing myself to feel what I'm feeling and making it okay that I had expectations to it. That's it. Like our emotions are this beautiful, like there's so many reasons for our emotions, but one of them I feel is a filtering. There's so many emotions and energy like that we create within ourselves that these emotions help pull it out. Like tears, pull it out.
One interesting concept there for those of us that are very introspective and very can feel our emotions a lot. I think a big key is letting go of the emotion about the emotion, right? Because we're like, oh, I'm feeling fear, I'm feeling shame, guilt, sadness, and then we're like, I shouldn't be feeling this way. Like
Judging it.
I'm done with feeling this way. I hate feeling this way. And then so it's we have the emotion about the emotion.
Yeah.
I know I feel that, and I feel the real way about that is just letting go, accepting, right? As you mentioned, it's okay. I'm
It's
feeling sad.
okay.
It's okay. I'm feeling this. And once we feel that love, that acceptance, that emotion is our amigo, is our friend, right? Is
You can laugh at it too afterwards.
yeah.
It's kind of funny. It's like, man, I got really pissed.
Yeah.
I got really fucking pissed.
But where it persists is if we don't like it. If we hate that we get angry, if we hate that we get anxious, if we hate that and we're trying to change
We're
that
resisting
emotion,
it. We're resisting the feeling. And yeah, with ayahuasca and plant medicine, that is one of the key things. One being breath is life. So constantly breathing is amazing for your energy. But any resistance will cause chaos. Any resistance to anything. So it doesn't matter what happens, being or finding a way to be okay with it, I feel is that next step when you feel those big feelings that you're like, fuck, I hate that I'm feeling this, or why am I feeling this? I'm done feeling like this. Accepting, find a way. Just find a way. However long it takes you, might take you a couple seconds, a couple minutes, a couple hours, but always get yourself back to it because that resistance is the chaos in your life. That's it. It's the response system. It's just the response system.
Yeah, it's Tony Robbins talks about this, like, is it 90 seconds, right? He allows himself to feel like,
what is it, 90 seconds? I choose to remember. I know what you're talking about, though.
Yeah, so like 90, it's like, look, you feel an emotion, let it be, right? Let it sit there. And his goal is like, hey, I'm gonna just really feel this for 90 seconds and then let's let it go. And he said, look, at other times of his life, like sometimes you can break that rule, like 90 seconds at times, sometimes it's 9 days, 9 weeks, right? It can happen, but let's just accept it, right? And then once we get better and better, I feel like we get better at feeling that emotion and letting it go. And then that time period of us feeling that goes down and down because we've accepted it. And shortens. And I'm sure you've seen this in your life, back then.
Oh yeah.
During your traumatic times, during the toughest times of your life, it was probably persistent, these negative emotions for months or maybe even years.
Oh yeah.
But now those emotions still come up, but maybe instead of months or years, it's a week, a day, an hour, a minute. We get better and better with that. And
oh yeah, and I've become more active And I think that made a big difference too. Because let's say 10, 12 years ago, when I would get into a space, let's say with my partner, and I would get pissed. I was the ice queen. I could block that mofo out for weeks if I wanted to. Don't fucking test me. I don't need to talk to you. Like whatever. Later on, I have, let's say, similar things that come up that upset me. What's my choice with that? Am I getting closer or am I separating myself from this person? What is the end result that I choose to have? Do I choose to be unhappy and hold a grudge and resentment? That seems really fucking exhausting. Life is too beautiful to be holding on to anything longer than an hour. That's my time period. Because I do recognize that there are certain topics that might trigger the fuck out of me. And I'll allow myself in that hour. But after that hour, it's like, okay, Mariette, you got to shift this. That's it. It's up. You got to shift this. Why? Because I rather be happy with my partner. I rather have that tough conversation, which I know will kind of suck because sometimes tough conversations do suck. But I know on the other side of that tough conversation, every single time has been breakthrough, has been a deeper level of connection with the person, deeper intimacy, and also another layer of strength knowing that, yes, I did it. It's all a choice. It's going to be some level of work or process. And before I wasn't willing to work at that. I just wanted to be right. So I'd be pissed, stay in that space, but I wouldn't do anything. And that's how I would break relationships with friends and partners and all the things. And it's about connection. It's about community. It's not about breaking a relationship and being like, I'm not going to be your friend. I'm not going to see you anymore because you offended me or you did something I didn't like or you didn't agree with me. It's about how can we mend this? That's more powerful. That's stronger. That takes a certain level of courage and staying power that a very, very strong person can do. And if you choose to be that strong person, you can be that strong person, or you can choose to be the person that just lets everyone go. But you never know what you're letting go because people are beautiful and people teach you things more and more every day. And they're also mirror reflections of each other. So if they said something that triggered you, maybe you needed to be triggered,
Yeah.
There's so many different things to it.
Letting that emotion come up, seeing it, accepting it, letting it go. And then from there, we can go have that conversation with that person, that open communication, trusting God, because a lot of times we're afraid to communicate because we're afraid of the result. Mm-hmm. We're afraid that if we communicate, that person's going to leave, that person. And at the end of the day, if we don't face our emotions and grow, that person is going to leave because we didn't communicate. And then there's built up resentment, built up emotions.
The person could very well stay, but you and them
are mirroring.
There's something there that you talked about resentment. That's kind of spot on. The relationship warps. It turns into something else. Instead of being free and open and honest, it now turns into something else. So being honest with a person, and let's say that person is not emotionally in a place to take on maybe that conversation. I can see where that fear comes up. But maybe adding a layer before you talk and pray and say, hey, God, whatever's meant to happen with this relationship, let it be seen. I choose honesty in my relationships. I choose transparency. I choose love. I choose for us to be partners, to be friends instead of enemies. This is how I choose for my relationships to be. And whatever is not in alignment with that, I trust you. And all you can do is speak honestly and go up to that person. And me statements, always me statements, never in that attacking space of like, you did this. I felt this way. This is how I felt when you did this, or this is how I felt when this happened. And from there, if they get defensive and angry and whatnot, just be like, listen, I'm just here to resolve this because you're my friend, because I love you. And I'd rather be happy with you than be in chaos with you. Can we find a resolve for this? Mm. And if you approach it like that, man, what person wouldn't be like, damn, they're being really, really like open? Because a lot of times people, when they communicate, they're just there to fight. Mm. They're just there to speak. They're not there to listen. And that's just a very unhealthy way of communication. So when you start communicating healthy, people might be taken back. Mm. They might lean into it or they might run away from it, but you can't control that. Mm. You got to just speak your truth, because each time you do, even if that person does leave, it's like everything is happening for me. Mm. And 8 out of 10 times that person comes back. Mm. Tail between their legs, being like, oh, I was in the wrong. Or I was too emotional and too much cortisol and I couldn't see anything. Mm.
And it helps them grow. Like, because at the end of the day, you're growing by being there, right? And communicating. And so it gives them the opportunity to grow with you, because when we're coming with this anger and this, it just is a perfect opportunity for them. And again, it's that mirror.
It's so called the charge. You coming with a charge.
Yeah.
Let go of the charge. Get to a place of acceptance and peace within yourself, and then you approach the person. Your job at the end of the day is the internal game.
Yeah.
No one else fucking matters. Yeah. If you got to speak your truth, you got to speak your truth. If something felt really uncomfortable and something felt disrespectful to you, whatever it is, you speak your truth. It's about you. Mm-hmm. And what's the best way to communicate your needs and desires? Then that's strategy. And that's taking the charge off. Mm. They need to teach these things in school.
Yes. That's for sure. That is
effective communication.
That's something that blows my mind, is how none of these concepts are taught in school. Like, school, you go, you learn your math, you learn your reading, you learn this, but like emotional awareness, like emotional techniques,
emotional regulation. Oh my God.
Whoa. Yeah. And I feel like at the end of the day, like, again, this is what I feel like you and I have discovered life is really about, is about that internal perspective. How do you handle this? And yes, it is, I think, taught secondhand, and you get lucky you have a good teacher that understands these things.
Most of these teachers are not emotionally regulated. I know growing up in my school, not many were regulated. They all had their things. I mean, yes, we're all human. I just feel that emotional regulation has really come up recently in these last 5-10 years. But when I was in elementary and middle school, like, I heard of teachers still like snapping their kids, like parents that spank their kids. I mean, that in itself is not emotional regulation, but it's so widely accepted in society. So why is it not being taught in schools? Maybe when spanking is seen as a way a parent is dysregulated, maybe when it shows that a parent is dysregulated and they acknowledge it as that, maybe it'll trickle over into school. But that's like the first thing. A parent who spanks their kid, this kid is having a temper tantrum. This kid did a behavior that was unacceptable. And this parent, instead of having the patience to find out why this kid did what they did, because it takes patience. I'm not saying that it's like everyone can do it. It takes an extra layer of muscle, of patience, of breathing to be able to talk to this kid and be like, hey, why did you hit so-and-so? Or why are you talking back to me? I love you. I need you to take a shower. Why are you being so mean? It hurts my feelings. Instead of shut up, spank.
I think a lot of that has to do with how that parent was raised, because that parent was once a kid, and then they
Emotional
have their
regulation is taught, is learned, is seen. And there are a lot of adults up until now, from older generations especially. Like, I feel like the baby boomers had the worst end of it. They come from a generation where, you have to work hard and live hard and work hard for your money, like this hard, like it was a lot of that. Like my mom's generation, like it was very much the child is seen, not heard. All these belief systems. So it kind of trickles down. And then from there, as a parent, you make a choice. Like right now, having Anais, my daughter, she's 9. There were many moments that I thought, I'm like, this is why parents spank their kids. I totally get it now, because there are moments that they push you to the edge. Push you to the edge. But you as a parent, you have to make that choice and like really work that muscle or activate that muscle of, I other than choose to use my hands to hurt my child, I choose to use my hands only for love. There has to be another way. And then you start doing it a different way, because the way it's been done for generations has been slapping and hitting and, hard consequences and all the things. So it's not easy, like I feel for the parents that still spank their kids that are my age or younger, because it really is easier. And the kid responds immediately. They're temper tantruming, they're doing something you don't want them to do. You spank them, that's it. They are pristine. But really, what harm is that doing to them psychologically as well? And we're seeing that now with our generation. It's like, my parents used to do this to me, used to do that to me. I felt like I was never heard. They didn't have patience with me. I felt like my voice didn't matter. So I learned to be quiet. I learned to people please so that my parents were happy. And it's a rabbit hole, like it just goes on and on and on. It's just about making better choices, different choices now. You doing the internal work that you're doing, me doing the internal work that I'm doing. That is the only homework we have, because then everything that we do is a reflection of that. And then we teach more people to do it, and then they do it. And then as a collective consciousness, as a collective community, we start doing things differently. And that's how we start changing the rules. What once was acceptable, we now, as a collective, see things differently. And we're like, you know what? This isn't working. Let's change the rules on this. I know this has been done for 50, 100 years, but let's change it now.
Yeah.
And that's why, like 50 years from now, this world is going to look completely different, because these younger generations, they're coming in and they're like, shit ain't right. There's something really fucked up with this place. What's happening?
Yeah. I feel like it's interesting. I feel like we've developed as a society so faster than the way our brains have developed, like with all the technology and the systems and just the sheer real estate development, like everything about it, like the motion and commotion. And I don't know, I have this feeling that like things are gonna potentially at some point like start shifting the other way, and we get back more to like an elementary, rudimentary just beingness, because that's how our brains, that's how our bodies developed, was in these small tribal communities. And I think it's just, and taking some of these elements and bringing it back into our own lives, because that's how we can really change things. Having these discussions, having our communities, having our people that we really care about, having that collective consciousness. I mean, that's a big thing. And so we'll, like, big takeaway here is like, find people that resonate with you, find people that have had similar struggles, find people that have similar weaknesses that have turned into their strengths, and get together with them. Like, because that's how we're going to do it as a community. Like, you have certain troubles, issues, like, speak up about it, talk to your friends, talk to your people, find a community that resonates, that's going to help you transform, and then help you transform everyone else around you. And we're going to live a better life.
Trauma can also attract trauma. victims can also attract victims. So yes, sharing experiences and being surrounded by like-minded individuals, people that have a growth mindset. Because yes, we can have all these experiences, similar experiences, all these things, but what are we going to do about it? What are we doing about it? How are we changing it within ourselves? How are we creating change in our own lives? How are we being advocates for these things? We all share so many similar qualities and so many similar experiences in different meat suits. And I find that up until now, there hasn't been as many people that truly can say, I walk the walk. They'll talk the talk, as in like, oh, I want to be happy and like peaceful. And like, I love meditating and I go to yoga every week and da da da. But when it comes to listening to their intuition, when it comes to being kind to themselves, when it comes to being kind to someone else, when it comes to choosing to be clear in communicating as opposed to arguing and being right, are they taking that higher road? Are they walking that walk? And it's not about perfection. It's just there are going to be moments where we kind of shift down and get stuck into these other ways of being. But what do we ultimately choose? Do we choose to be our best selves? And what are we doing to keep doing that?
I think it's having that ultimate, like, deepest level commitment and knowing to it, because
or regurgitating things that sound nice. I've encountered a lot of that too up until now. There's been a lot of leaders or people with leadership roles that do regurgitate and say all the great things, all the knowledgeable things, but their impact isn't as strong because their heart isn't really in it, or they're not really walking that walk. When you speak your truth and it's coming from you, like the deepest parts of you, your message will be heard thousands of miles. Whereas if you're just regurgitating something that is wise, it'll be felt at a superficial level. To really penetrate someone is to speak your truth, and it really come from the innermost part of you, which is also inspiring. So that's why one of my favorite things about you is your ability to get back on track. Because that's your commitment, to get back on track. And as you get back on track, and now that you're incorporating more and more prayer into your life, you are being shown different things, new things that when you say yes to, you're like, wow, this is really cool. Like the summer camp thing, that came straight from God. That was straight from God. God was like, he's too much in his head. I can't get through. And I'm like, I got you. He's listening to me right now. And that kind of came in. And simple. Sometimes it's the simplest things too. And just taking it bite by bite, day by day. And you will see it accumulate over time. And just being patient with yourself. God, we don't have to have it all figured out like in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year, or even 5 years, you know? We overestimate what we can do in 5 years and underestimate what we can do in 20. Whew. My God.
Mariette, what are you grateful for today?
I am grateful for this conversation because I wasn't sure what conversation was going to come through. There's so many things we could talk about. And I'm just so happy that one of the main points that we talked about was prayer. Because it wasn't until this conversation, actually, that I was really able to verbalize how important prayer has been in my life, because it's always been there. Maybe I've always been grateful for it in my own way, but to share it in this kind of platform and encourage others to step into prayer, it's like, oh my God, that has been the key. So just having that aha moment and extra confirmation of how powerful prayer is, I feel really grateful that that was a big part of my message today. a huge part, because I feel that that single-handedly will help shift so many lives and bring so much ease and empower so many people to be like, wow, I got this. You know, I'm not lost like I thought I was. Because I remember feeling lost and it really sucks. And to help empower you, to help empower whoever's listening, whoever's guided to listen to this, like if they just start praying, if you just start praying, if you just start praying and just play with it, you will receive something so different than what you've been getting. And that's a guarantee. And if it doesn't happen, which it won't, reach out to me, please. But I guarantee your life will change. And I'm so happy to be a part of your journey. And thank you for being here. And thank you for receiving what it is that we're talking about, because we could talk all day about all these amazing things. And if you don't receive a single thing of it, you know, like it's fine. But at the end of the day, this is for you. And thank you, Evan, for having this platform and to have this conversation and schedule. It takes a lot on your back end to do this, the editors and setting everything up. Thank you.
Thank you.